Barbara Starr, thank you very much. And so Barbara now reporting this connection that the U.S. government sees. As Barbara said, we did talk about this last week, hours after the siege began. I spoke on the phone with Omar Hamaha, a military leader in the Islamist group Ansar Dine, which has taken over and terrorized parts of northern Mali. He told me then that Americans were being held hostage and that the attackers demanded the end to French and American involvement in Mali in exchange for their release. He knew these things because, he told me, he's working with one of al-Qaeda's most senior leaders in Africa, Mokhtar Belmokhtar, who is the person claiming responsibility for the January 16th attack. Omar Hamaha also made claims about how widespread the terror network is in North Africa when I asked him how many fighters he had.
Listen, the number of fighters is not important for us. Be it 10,000 or only 10 people. We're going to hit in the heart all the countries of West Africa. It's no longer only in northern Mali. Yes, it's not only in Bamako. It will be the entire Western Africa. And it's not only in Western Africa, but it's the big battle against France and the United States and all the other countries that want to intervene.
Retired General Wesley Clark is the former NATO commander. Retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton is a former intelligence officer. Great to see both of you. General Clark, let me start with you. Barbara Starr just reported the Algerian government has not been cooperating. The CIA has tried to piece this together themselves. Obviously, this makes it very complicated and much more difficult, but only now, more than a week later, the U.S. government is connecting the dots, which at least from, when we talked to Omar on the day of the attack, seemed to be perhaps visible very early on. What is causing the delay?
Well, I would suspect the Algerian government's quite embarrassed by the poor results. They've been criticized roundly by other Western countries for not running a very effective operation. Had a lot of people killed in the operation. That's not the way it's done. Now, they pushed it up. They accelerated it. They simply don't have the sophisticated special ops capabilities, hostage rescue capabilities that Western countries have. But eventually, I'm convinced they will share information. We're going to find out a lot more about the Mali connection, the Libyan connection, and the whole network moving throughout North Africa as we focus more and more sensors on this area.
Colonel Leighton, when I spoke to Omar, you heard what he had to say about the fact that their ambition is not just for Mali, it's to control all the countries in West Africa, and they also want to take the battle outside of that to France and the United States. Now, of course, that is what we have become familiar to hearing from al-Qaeda-linked groups, but, he also said, look, this is going to be a long war. He equated it when we spoke to Iraq and Afghanistan, saying it would be as dangerous, if not more so, than those wars. Do you just dismiss all of this as bravado, or should it be taken seriously?
Well, I'm afraid, Erin, it's going to have to be taken seriously because, just like he said, even with only 10 people, they can wreak a lot of havoc. And that becomes the huge intelligence challenge that we have. We need to make sure that, as a nation, we have the right intelligence capabilities in place to make sure that we find these kinds of terrorist groups before they attack us, whether it's in our home country or in the home countries of our allies.
General Clark, I'm curious what the United States is going to do about it. So far, at least militarily, the answer has been not much. No one's been been put in jail for what happened in Benghazi, and now, of course, we're trying to figure out what happened in Algeria. Never mind what sort of revenge would be exacted upon those who perpetrated it. Here's what Defense Secretary Leon Panetta told me last month in Afghanistan about what he would do against al-Qaeda in Mali.
We've got to go after al-Qaeda wherever the hell they're at and make sure they find no place to hide. Because let's not forget, the main goal of al-Qaeda is to attack the United States. We've got to go after them in Yemen, in Somalia, and yes, in Mali if necessary.
He says go after wherever the hell they're at, whether that be Yemen, Somalia, or Mali. Jay Carney, though, from the White House, really much more tentative. Here's what he said just this week.
We are working with France and support their effort in Mali and believe that the goal of preventing terrorists a safe haven is an important one.
I mean, General Clark, going after al-Qaeda wherever the hell they're at is very different than we are working with France.
Well, not necessarily, Erin. I mean, first of all, we have the Africa Command there. They're working very closely with their French counterparts and their British counterparts who are part of this. Obviously, the intelligence community is working together with its allied nations, perhaps not as closely yet with Algeria as we'd like, but I believe that will come. We'll put a noose around them. We'll bring in the right assets. What we don't want to do is excite a lot of war fever on this that culminates in sort of put the Marines in, get in there with a lot of ground troops. Right? This is a huge area. This is an area that's ideal for the kind of sensors the United States has if we can tie it together with some ground assets put in by the Malians, by the French, by the Nigerians, and other people who are in the region. And what we have to do is we have to net the intelligence together and then use precision strike. Probably with unmanned aerial vehicles. It may be with special ops.
Right. And let me ask you, Colonel Leighton, about that. You know, the hope from the Obama administration, of course, is that France can achieve the goal of, at the least, containing, which is the words that they've used, al-Qaeda and the radicals. Obviously, at one point, Francois Hollande went further than that and said completely getting rid of them. But even if France claims a clear victory, I have to be honest that all the sources I've spoken to, U.S. government and elsewhere, are not confident in France's ability to fully do this. Will the United States be able to avoid more significant involvement or not?
Well, I think we have to plan as if we won't be able to avoid this kind of significant involvement, Erin. And basically what that means is, just as General Clark mentioned, we are going to have to make sure that we have the right kind of sensors in place, that we have the right kind of logistics in place, and also do the planning that puts the right kinds of troops in place should we need to go in and do something preferably of a surgical variety. But this is going to be a major issue for us because the French will be able to achieve certain tactical successes, but from the broad strategic standpoint, it's going to be more difficult for them to root out this al-Qaeda element.
All right. Thanks very much to both of you. We appreciate it. And still to